Hello, my name is Vincent Niemann, and this is Orthodox Christian Television. On today's program, I have with me the deacon, Father Michael Halford, and the reader, Timothy Fisher. Michael Halford being the deacon at, or one of the deacons at the Cathedral of St. Marcellus here in Astoria, and Mr. Fisher is the reader at Holy Fathers of the Seven Ecumenical Councils, a Russian Orthodox Church in Manhattan. Welcome, gentlemen.
It's good to be here.
Thank you.
Today's program deals with, well, you could say a touchy subject in Orthodox circles. It regards the heresy, or what is considered to be the heresy of ecumenism. In today's program, we are going to define ecumenism, find out why it is considered a heresy, and in subsequent programs, we will be answering very frequently asked questions, not only by Orthodox Christians who may not be as informed as others about this alleged heresy, but also Christians from the heterodox sects. So let me start out by asking, what exactly is ecumenism? The floor is open.
Well, first of all, it comes from the word, a Greek word, which means sort of the subtle world, the universe. So it means, in a sense, universality. Meaning basically that it's going to take in all kinds of different ideas, concepts of the church, theologies, various types of Christianities. Within the Western frame of reference, that can mean something rather positive because they kind of have something in common and they all stem from a common root, which we happen to feel is incorrect, but that's another story.
Because it's a departure from the true church, of the original church,
yeah,
which
as
is
the Orthodox Church itself understands itself to be, and then it grew out of a Protestant movement to try and reunite Protestant confessions and sects and so on, which have splintered to an incredible degree over the past 400 or 500 years. And then it began to include the Roman Catholic Church and then the Orthodox Church. The problem with it, of course, is that it violates one of the basic principles, which we believe goes back to the 4th century with the basic Christian statement of belief, which is called the Nicene Creed, after the Council of Nicaea in the city where it was held. And that is that there is one church, and that is not something abstract. It's not something theoretical. It's something that's concrete within history, and its unity resides in the unity of mind and of doctrine.
So I would imagine if a Protestant or one of the heterodox Christians were here right now and he says, well, that's all a matter of opinion. It was just men, a meeting of men and minds at this. Why would, he might ask, well, why would this be considered a heresy if it's just a bunch of men who sit down and have certain ideas about things?
Well, from the outset, in order to understand ecumenism, you have to understand the milieu, the ethos from which ecumenism has arisen. And that milieu or ethos is this entire Western humanistic tradition, beginning with the so-called Enlightenment, which from an Orthodox viewpoint we don't consider much of an enlightenment. It was returned to the pre-Christian pagan roots, of the classical Greek civilization, and a renunciation of Christianity, and a return to diversity. Christianity was the unifying worldview which united a diverse Roman Empire. And it was that worldview which was able to bridge language differences, cultural differences, and to create a unity.
So there was a world view which was consistent throughout the empire.
Yes. And what, in fact, the Protestant movement, which began actually with Martin Luther, has been a splintering, has been a further divergence from this unity, to the point now where there are estimated 22,000 Protestant denominations, all believing different things about the Scriptures, many of them contradicting each other. And the problem is that where this began with the Protestant movement, and ecumenism first began among the Protestants because the Roman Catholic Church did not see any point to it, because up until the Second Vatican Council, the Roman Catholic believed that the Protestants and the Orthodox were in heresy. And it was only after ecumenism had finally infiltrated the Catholic Church, and taken its root there, beginning with the modernism at the turn of this of the last century, in the 1920s and 30s, that finally its fruits bore came to fruition, I should say, with the Second Vatican Council, that finally the Roman Catholic Church joined this ecumenical movement.
Was the World Council of Churches in existence then?
No.
I see.
But the World Council of Churches arose basically out of a desire among the Protestants to somehow bridge these denominational differences to come to some kind of unity, some kind of agreement. And since they couldn't come to an agreement on basic doctrine, being that since the onset of Protestantism there were two totally divergent schools of theology, what we would call Calvinistic theology and what was then called Arminian theology. One, the Calvinists believing that man was predestined to either heaven or hell, and there was no free will, and the Arminian believing that it was your conscious choice which determined where you went in an afterlife. And since that great schism of the Protestant movement, which produced these two wings of Protestantism, and since they couldn't come to an agreement to either abandon Arminianism and embrace Calvinism, or to abandon Calvinism and embrace Arminianism.
Nor could they find a synthesis of the two.
Since they couldn't do that,
yeah.
They ultimately decided they would agree to disagree. And see, once they had reached this point, they had adopted this Enlightenment ideal that we could only have our own opinion about a certain thing.
Now, Enlightenment ideal from the Age of Enlightenment in the latter half of the 18th century?
That's correct.
Which is as you were asking, is a humanistic ideal, as the Father said, which is based on this concept of that everything that exists in human experience is ultimately a matter of human opinion. It's a matter of this group or that group, but it's always based on human experience, whether it be, something in a philosophical sense, something a priori before reason, or something after reason, or whatever would be the basis. Whereas the Church is founded on a much more profound and fundamental concept, which is that of revelation, that there are certain things which are necessary for our salvation, for us to understand, but we can't come to them and perceive them without being enlightened, to use their own word, which they borrowed from us from many centuries before, but then reinterpreted. It's sort of typical of the way a lot of these ideas work. A lot of the basic terminology is from Christianity, but put in with a whole different meaning and contradictory to Christianity. That's one example. But they would infuse the humanistic concept with this idea that everybody has their own opinions, and it immediately rules out the concept of a divine revelation.
Of an absolute truth, you might say.
Of an absolute truth.